Hi everyone, this is Math 30-1, Trigonometry, Lesson 4. We spend very little time on this lesson, so let's go through this slowly, then you can understand what this lesson is all about. Now, this lesson is about finding the angle. So, when you write a trig equation, it has three parts. One is one of the six trig function, sine, cosine, tangent, secant, cosecant, cotangent. Next is the angle, right? The second part. You always have trig of an angle will give you a ratio. So ratio could be a fraction, could be just a number. Well, then you can make it over 1. It will be a ratio. So it's always in this format. And then if you don't have the angle, to find the angle, you use inverse trig function. And then you enter the ratio. And what the calculator will give you the angle. Okay? So this is like the definition. You just need to stick with that. So like in this lesson 4 is about how to find the angle. Okay. So now you look at the steps. It says determine the quadrant. Next, you find the inverse of the absolute, which means just use the positive value. Why? Because by using the positive value, they'll always give you the reference angle and always an angle in the first quadrant. And then you can find out, knowing which quadrant the angle should be, then you can find out the angle. Okay, so let's look at an example. We did an example in class. And let's do that again. So I think we did the example here. So let's go to the next page. Let's do exercise 3. Okay, exercise 3. Solve cotangent. Okay, well, it tells you, give you a cotangent, you need to use tangent because the calculator doesn't have any calculator key for cosecant, secant, and cotangent. So let's flip the left side. Cotangent, when you flip it, become tangent. And when you flip the right side, become 1 over root 3. Does this look familiar? Yes, it's in the table. Okay, so you need to have the table in your head. You have to write it down. I suggest when you get a test paper on the side, just quickly make the table, right? Sine, cosine, tangent. The special angles are 0, pi over 6, pi over 4, pi over 3, and pi over 2. And then you quickly write your angles here, like the ratio here. All right, and then you divide them to get the last row. 1 over 3 appears here. So tangent pi over 6 is 1 over 3. Now, they say use degree. Well, let's use radian because radian is something that we're not familiar with. So let's use it more. Now, tangent x is this. So the answer is pi over 6. Hey, but that's an only answer in the first quadrant. It says you should consider the entire circle. So use as sugar to coffee. Alright, when tangent x is a positive number, it could be in quadrant 1, it could be in quadrant 3. So therefore, first find out the reference angle. For all the special ratio that is in the table, use the table, pi over 6, okay? So student will ask, where do you get this number? It's from the table, okay? It's from the table. And then, if the answer in quadrant 1, having pi over 6, then pi over 6 is the answer. Quadrant 1, the rotation angle is the reference angle. In quadrant 3, the rotational angle is pi plus pi over 6. Okay, so that's the answer, but let's use common denominator, right? You need to add fractions. So make pi into 6 pi over 6. Why? Because I want to add them. So now you add pi over 6, then your answer is 7 pi over 6. Okay, so you just need to be very good at adding fractions. Okay, now let's try the other one. All right, let's try example number 4. We already did part A. Let's try part B. Okay, first they want one full circle, so you need to consider one full circle. Let's work with radian. All right. Cosecant. Well, take the reciprocal of that is sine. And then you also need to take the reciprocal of 2.45. Okay, so here we go. So first, determine which quadrant. So add sugar to coffee, we're working with sine. If it's positive, the answer will be in first and second quadrant. Next, find out the reference angle by doing the inverse of sine. Right, inverse of sine is a button in your calculator. You put the ratio there. All right, it will give you the reference angle. So you do that in your calculator. You put that in the calculator. The answer you get is 0.42. Okay, this is where people will be confused because the angle is 0.408. No, like the ratio is 0.408 and then the angle is 0.42. Like they're so familiar, like so similar. But one is a ratio, one is an angle. So you just need to know what are you working with. Be very clear in your head. If you're doing inverse of a sine function, what you get, what in front of you is an angle. If you type sine of an angle in a calculator, what you get will be a ratio. They are all decimal number, but you need to tell what they are. Okay, so this is the angle. In quadrant 1, that will be the answer. Okay, my two answers in quadrant 1 and 2. In quadrant 1 is just same as that. In quadrant 2, the answer will be pi minus the reference angle. Now you write 0.42, but you don't use 0.42. You use the number in your calculator, which is 0.420441196.8 and so on. So you take the pi key, right? Use the pi number and then you subtract them. So 2.72. Okay, so that will be the answer. These are the 2 radian. And if you put it in the calculator, it will. This is the ratio that you will get. Okay, next two, we are back to a special angle. Now, how do I know? Because it's 0 and undefined. There's something in your calculator. Now, cosine, when is it 0? So you look at the table. Cosine is 0 at 90 degree, pi over 2. So reference angle is pi over 2. Now, hey, you say the first step should be determine the quadrant. But I don't know because is it positive or negative? 0, you can consider it as positive. So you can put it here in quadrant 1 and 4. You actually realize it doesn't matter because 0 is neither positive nor negative. It's between positive and negative. So pi over 2 reference angle, if you start from the x-axis, pi over 2 is 90 degree away, which actually give you here. And doesn't matter which quadrant, even if you consider second quadrant, it will also end up in the same place. So 0 is a special case, a special angle, and also special case because neither from quadrant 1 or quadrant 2, reference angle pi over 2 degree is end up in the same place. So same for quadrant 4 or 3, it end up in the same place. So these two are your answer. Okay, so the angles is pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. 3 pi over 2 is set at 270 degree. Now, we already learned the graphs, right? The graphs of cosine function. So if I plot it in one full cycle 2 pi, there's 4 quadrants, so you cut it in 4 equal parts. You need to graph 5 points. For cosine function, start on top. It start at 1. Okay, it start at 1, 0, negative 1, 0, positive 1, right? It started like this. So it is at 0 at 90 degree and 270 degree. So another way to find this special angle. Okay, finally, this one, B. Cosecant is undefined. Well, how do you work with undefined? Now, if cosecant is a reciprocal of sine, what reciprocal is undefined? Well, undefined is not a number. How can you take a reciprocal of that? Well, then what reciprocal is undefined if you think about that? So if I have a number, I take the reciprocal, hey, that's become undefined. So where does undefined come from? It comes from 0. So when sine theta is 0, cosine secant is undefined. So 0 is also a special angle on the table. Again, doesn't matter where you put it. First or second quadrant, doesn't matter. Or like third and fourth quadrant, because the reference angle will be 0. So it will be the axis, x-axis, here and here, 0 away. So you can't say is it in second or like third or fourth quadrant. That's why it's 0, there's no sign. So therefore the answers will be 0 and pi. Now, if they want to include 360 as well, now in here they have equal sign on both. Now, in some textbook, when they give a domain for the first cycle, they will write 0 degree including, but then just less than 360 degree. They won't include 360 degree. Why? Because 360 degree supposed to be the beginning of next cycle, right? 720 degree. But if you include 360 degree, then you kind of stealing 1 degree from the next cycle. So I prefer this way, more proper, right? One cycle, next cycle, they don't overlap. But here, this textbook, they include an equal sign. If that's the case, 0 degree and 360 degree is coterminal. So you can see in the answer, whenever you have 0 degree, they also stick a 360 degree there, which is 2 pi. So it's just one extra overlap. Yeah, because they overlap it, so whenever you have 0, write 2 pi as well. So after these few pages, okay, it is the same thing again, repeated, but just for radian. Okay, they talk about ratio and all that. Sometimes the question may just give you a smaller range. So 0 to pi, they're only interested in the first two quadrants. Tangent, right? Tangent, you swap it around. And then tangent negative is in the second quadrant. Well, they only want the first two quadrants, so you only need an answer there. When you find an inverse, all right, when you find an inverse, just put the positive. Why? Because that will give you the reference angle. If you put negative, because in the first quadrant is not equal to positive, so they won't give you the reference angle. They will give you an angle in either second or fourth quadrant. But I'll prefer you always use positive here, okay, to always get the reference angle, and then you figure out, like once you know the reference angle, in second quadrant will be pi minus that reference angle will give you the answer. So always do that. Okay, so if you go more, it's just exact multiple of pi, which means exact value. So therefore, they must give you special angle. So these are all special ratio, right? So same idea. Okay, so let's try this. Secant is cosine. And then if you swap this, is this. And does it look familiar? Yes, it's the special ratio. So the theta is a special angle. So do as sugar to coffee. Cosine is negative in second and third. When you plug in the ratio, you always put positive, but we actually don't need this because we have the table. Okay, on the table, this is equal pi root 2 over 2 is in the middle, so it's pi over 4. Okay, it's from the table. So therefore, in quadrant 2, it will be pi minus pi over 4. In quadrant 3, it will be pi plus pi over 4. Well, how can you ever like add fractions together, make a common denominator? So in both cases, pi becomes 4 pi over 4. 4 pi over 4 minus 1 pi over 4 is 3 pi over 4. The next one, 4 pi over 4 plus 1 pi over 4 is 5 pi over 4. Okay, so that's complete lesson 4. Okay, we go really quickly in class because we have seen it last year. The only difference is radian this time. So now you can try and this lesson is complete.